So I was just thinking about how podcasting really changed my ability to level up. There were so many things that I was thinking about in my practice that would come up with clients, and or just how I was running the practice. And the podcast really allowed me to explore this on just like a much deeper level. And so one thing I did is I put together this podcast, but then also took some time to think about that process of starting a podcast. And I've put a ton over at podcastlaunchschool.com as a way to just help therapists that want to start a podcast. We have a bunch of services over there if you're looking to go full tilt. But honestly, just starting a podcast, learning about it, we have tons over at podcastlaunchschool.com, and we'd love for you to check it out. This is the Practice of the Practice podcast with Joe Sanok, session number 1385. Welcome, everybody, to the Practice of the Practice podcast. I am so excited to have you here today with me. I am so excited today to have Emily Pagone with me, who is a licensed clinical professional counselor, group practice owner, and clinical supervisor. In addition to running her own practice, she mentors therapists who want to grow sustainable, values-driven businesses without losing sight of their clinical identity. She's also the host of the brand new Inner Critic podcast. Emily, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Joe. It's great to
Oh,
be here.
yeah. I'm so excited to have you here. We've been working together on your podcast, and I've been able to watch you grow and have your own inner critic come out as you're making the Inner Critic
Yeah,
podcast, which is like quite the meta thing to experience.
it is.
So let's just start with, okay, you have a group practice. What are some times that your own inner critic has come out
Oh
when
gosh.
you've been an entrepreneur?
Yeah, like right every other moment. For me, it's like I always name it like, I found group practice ownership or it found me, but it was always in the cards. It was never the direct plan, but I definitely knew I wanted to hang my shingle up. And so what I've learned over, 13 years of being a therapist, but then 5-ish years of being a group practice owner, but like now 5 years later, I've learned that my inner critic has was the one like standing in my way of a lot of ideas.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I always call her Nona. I like, I've taken some time in my own therapy work and my coaching work and you and I working together that, I love to share that a bit more with people to make it more real for them. But, I call her Nona. She's just like this like Italian lady, but just very, this energetic part of me is just, doesn't want to be seen, right? Doesn't want to be seen. Yeah, don't worry about saying things to people. Don't forget those ideas. And so it's been a battle of a lifetime, right? But then years of work life here, of owning a group practice, of, yeah, working with that tension of, okay, wait, like we have some great ideas, things we want to launch, things we want to offer to the, client population and just the greater communities around here, Chicagoland. And it's Nona is just like this energy is staring at me in my eyeballs. I always say, like, don't
Mm.
do it. Kind of like, don't do it. Don't even think it, right? So it's always been a constant battle. And then nowadays it's like a friendship that we are
Mm.
negotiating each day.
A friendship. How does that friendship look? I mean, is this like a toxic friend, or is this a friend that has served you well? Or like, yeah, what I guess maybe, yeah, let's start with what's the good side of that friendship?
Yeah, what's the good side is that, it's obviously it's taken like a lot of years to land at some kind of like an agreement here with this part of me, right? Um, but the friendship is collaborative. The inner critic, luckily now, after a lot of work, is an advisor,
Yeah.
right? So if this critic is worried about something coming up, worried about being seen, heard, anything else, I remind myself that this part of me is reporting information to me um, about concerns, like fears and concerns. And it's okay, instead of letting it take the steering wheel, right? As we always say, I'm just like, okay, having it be an advisor to me. So I'm going to hear it. I'm going to let it know I hear it. And then I have to remind it that, like, Emily's here. Emily's been an adult, late 30s, something lady over here, who can make some trusted decisions now. But it's that relational collaboration and reminding and a lot of safety, right? It's taken a long
Mm.
time to get to a safety exchange to trust one another.
Yeah. Now, where's an inner critic come from?
Yeah, I love that. So, we as therapists, we have studied and gotten to know, right? Like, it comes from different things of like childhood, growing up, earlier years, things absorbed from earlier messages from other caregivers or even parents or people. And then, for me, I would definitely own and say and acknowledge that it came from being undiagnosed ADHD for my whole life until I was 30 something years old with some humans I was taking care of that came from me or my own kids. And so the inner critic came from a fixed educational system. Being older millennial is just where I've landed in time and space of being here. So just the fixed educational system I know is a huge force of that for me and my nervous system. So it's the it's the voices of not good enough, work harder. Um, what are you doing? You're not figuring this out. It's just yeah. I always remember being like the younger kid, reading the same sentence over and over, and then everyone's at circle time. So it's like
Mm,
that's how the inner critic really got honed in there for me. Right. But for other people, it can be like childhood, other voices, educational systems, and yeah, older humans that are helping raise children that are
yeah.
around somebody for sure.
So I want to run just like a personal thing by you. So the other day,
Yeah.
it was like a super busy day for me. I had like physical therapy like early in the morning, and then the girls were actually off of school that day, and I had forgotten to schedule early physical therapy, and so then we're doing all these things like going to Costco and running the girls here and there, and it was like I don't know 4 or so in the afternoon, and
Yeah.
I felt like I had not taken a breath all day. And
Yeah.
then my like oldest daughter is like, "Hey dad, I want to make this like fancy dessert." She's been into like really creative, cool desserts that are always delicious. And so we
Yeah.
went back to the grocery store and got the stuff. And so then I'm finally home, and then I'm like, I'm gonna just go play Mario Kart for a few minutes to just let my brain rest. And Claire was like making soup, and it was really interesting how I inside was like a good partner goes and helps make soup. They don't go play video games. And so I go and I set a
Mhm.
timer for 15 minutes, let myself have 15 minutes of Mario Kart, and then
Yeah.
went back into the kitchen and was going to just talk to my daughter. And, Claire asked me, like, hey, can you help chop some vegetables?
Right. Right.
And I didn't feel like I had a choice. And I've worked with my own therapist on this, and like
Yeah.
I need to stand up for myself. And it's not her doing anything. It's like this
No.
internal voice
No.
of, being raised Catholic, being
Mhm.
firstborn, being this
Yeah.
person that like when in doubt, put your nose to the grindstone. Um
Yep.
and it doesn't serve me either. Like this inner critic is like such an a-hole. So
Yeah.
it's like
So
so
painful.
so teach me, what should I be doing when it comes to the inner critic, specifically around saying no and potentially letting other people down when I know my body needs to rest?
Oh, that's so great, Joe, and I resonate so much in there. Um, yeah, I think the first thing that comes up to me is that I always access my curiosity when these narratives come up. So I'm like, okay, what does my curiosity say? Or what do I want to know here? And it's what are the fears and concerns that this inner critic have about the
Mm,
person, about me? Um, and so for me, being a parent too, right, of just triaging the tasks and the things to do that you just outlined and shared here. And I'm like, okay, so if I take a second to breathe and have a cup of coffee, literally in like a room or like Mario Kart, same thing, right?
yeah.
That thing. And then the inner critic's like, you're not doing enough, this and this. And it's like, okay, whoa, right? So I'm zooming in. Here we are. We hear both of ours talking. This is what they say to us. And I'm like, okay, what does it want us to know about its fears and concerns right now? What is it concerned about, actually? And so that's where I get to
Mm.
know a bit more information about what it's trying to do for me, right?
I wonder if, yeah, and I hate to interrupt, but I'm
No,
gonna.
go. Yeah, here we are.
uh, I wonder if in that moment, if I had said, my fear is that I'm not a good enough partner, and I'm feeling like I should chop vegetables to prove to you I'm a good partner. Is
Mm,
that true? That could challenge some of that inner critic to have her say back to me, like,
yeah,
go sit down. Like, I don't care. Like, if it takes
right.
5 minutes more, we don't get soup on time, like, whatever, it's soup.
Yeah.
So I love that idea of like what's driving the inner critic, naming it, and then maybe like
Mhm.
getting it out and seeing if that's true.
Yes, and what I found out in my work is this is based in different ego state works. We know IFS, internal family systems, is huge, and that's a huge part of what I do as well. And then, yeah, different types of ego state work. But, and when we're going through the steps there, and so just like boil it down here, it's okay. We're learning that these parts mean well for us. They're trying to protect the person that they're connected to. They have valid fears and concerns. So we're getting to know those things. Um, and then it's just hearing those out, understanding them. And then if, we have to let those parts know how old we are now, because they think that they're managing and dealing with a younger body human being, likely a
Mhm.
child version of ourselves. So I found through my personal work here, not only does my personal work help personally, but it has permeated in every single avenue of my life. And of course, with parenting, raising humans, the most important job of life. And then, finding entrepreneurship, it finding me by accident, and like
Yeah.
20 inner critics always staring at me with my eyeballs. And I'm like, okay, what do y'all want from me? What are you concerned about? And I'm like, hold on. I notice myself needing to remind them how old I am now. And a lot of the times, like the energy in my body is like, oh, she's not an 18-year-old anymore.
Mhm.
She's definitely, late 30s here. Oh,
Yeah,
hmm.
I love that because I think like in wanting to be a good partner, there's a like just being a man and wanting to like be a good man side of it, but there's also that like middle school, high school, rejected by girls side
Mhm.
too that you're just like we all go through that awkward stuff. And I had a realization years ago where I was still kind of carrying around this like bully from eighth and ninth grade named Jeremy, and I realized I was walking past an elementary school or like middle school, and there was a bunch of like kids that were in like seventh or eighth grade. And I'm like, if any one of those kids walked up to me right now as a 40-something-year-old guy and said, "You're stupid, your face is ugly," you're like, if they tried to bully me,
Yeah, yeah.
I'd be like, screw off. Like, your brain's
Right.
not even close to be fully formed. Like, it's hilarious that you think that you can make someone feel bad for that.
Yeah.
And it's just so true that we sometimes have that lens of back
Mhm.
then, but to just remind our parts, man, you are a 47-year-old man that, mostly has his crap together. Like, you were helpful then, but you don't have to help me now. I love that.
Yeah. And it's ongoing. I notice that no matter how much deep sessions I have of my own of the different parts work here and inner critic work, I always have to remind my inner critics like who I am and who they're connected to.
Mhm.
They have a really hard time. They forget all the time. So it's like an ongoing dialogue of, okay, this is who we're connected with. It's Emily. We can trust her. She's doing well. She means well in her heart. She's a good egg. So I always have to remind that the different parts of me that.
Is it more like when you're meditating and your mind starts racing and then you notice that idea and then you just let it go? Or is it more like we need to kind of we hope we push it down enough that that inner critic doesn't come up anymore? Like we really
Mm,
hope to kind of exclude it from our life. Like and maybe neither of those metaphors are like good, but
we're
like
good.
what's the posture towards your inner critic that you think is healthiest?
Yeah. So as we know, we know this. And then it's just naming is good too. Human nature is to just push it away. Like if it's uncomfortable, no thanks, right? And then we know how that goes too, right? So it's like it simmers, it gets louder. The inner critic or other parts of us, frustrated parts, whoever else, there's different kinds, but the inner critic gets louder. It has a stronger message. It wants to be heard. It has important messaging in there. Um, I keep, I'm repeating, but then I'm just for the point of there's fears and concerns that need to be heard from it. And so, yes, there may be times when we dive in deep, we get to know it, we learn, we learn, we hear, we have dialogue, and then days go by, maybe days go by. And I found, and then me being me, it's like it needs to be every other hour, noticing who. And I happen to be a visual person, so I visually kind of sense the energies around. I kind of create personifications of each different part. I just like kind of notice them. Everyone's different. You kind of sort that out on your own and how your nervous system is. Um, but being a neurodivergent person, just like for me, being visual, I can kind of uh, feel in time and space where those different energies are for me of the different parts of me. So it's like, okay, how far away are they from me? Are they giving me space in this moment? Or is she like I always even tell you, Joe, when we have our sessions, like, or is she staring in the corner in this room, like eyeballing me, right? Like she has a concern. She's like, whoa. It's ongoing. And maybe there's times when it's just like your brain needs a break and just like not worry about the parts, and that's okay. So we have like sometimes good friend dissociation come in and just like try to chill us out a little bit, and that's cool, right? They all have different, functions and everything, but it's an ongoing exchange of understanding.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is as these parts or the inner critic comes up, it is like a noticing a conversation, not a I need to get rid of that, or like whatever
Yeah.
part it is, like my childhood version of myself. It's not a like get out of here, Joey. It's a okay, Joey has shown up. What's Joey's
Hmm.
function? Okay, Joey, go back and play outside. Stop bothering
Yeah,
adult
and
Joe.
it's like, okay, wait, and, I maybe have mentioned this to you before, but my oldest is a Joey, so it's just really endearing. But then when I hear Joey, right, and it's just, it's a kid, and it's just such a sweet, nickname, and, we probably went maybe some people call you Joey still, but, it's endearing, it's sweet, and so we wanna invite the sweetness, the younger parts of us to be near us,
Mm,
actually, because they are looking for a trusted adult, and we do have good news here, which is we are the trusted adult here for them, to hear them out.
It reminds me of spiral dynamics, where the idea is transcend and include. That as we go
Mhm.
through different states, either as a society or an individual, that we leave behind the bad parts and we take the good parts with us, instead of saying, "Man, I was so dumb to believe that, or to think that,
Mhm.
or to trust that person," but instead to say, "Okay, I wanted that group of people to like me for this reason, and community
Yeah,
is good, even if I don't believe what that group
right.
believes anymore. I can
Mhm.
still take that community is a good thing and transcend and include." I want to ask about like the difference between men and women. And of course, whenever we talk about genders, we are stereotyping in a way, and everyone doesn't fit into every category. But how do inner critics show up differently typically between people that are more masculine leaning? Because obviously gender isn't the same as like all of that. We don't need to
Yeah,
go into that. But like more masculine leaning, feminine leaning, like how does it show up differently between kind of the
yeah,
different
I hear you.
spectrum?
Mhm. Yeah, so first and foremost, I think about society's conditioning of male, female, feminine, masculine. So that's where I begin in my mind, and I'm like, okay, what does society or what does it attempt to condition us in those different uh, binary categories, right?
Sure.
We know there's different ways of identifying. And from there, it's okay, what does that inner critic in each spot there starting off have to say about one's performance? Or the inner critic's opinion of lack thereof, right? So then
Mm,
we go into father, mother, I guess furthermore is where my brain goes next, right? Father over here, I happen to be a mother too. So it's like, okay, what does society condition us to feel as mothers? And then
mm,
I can speak from that spot too. And I know you can speak from the father spot, right? And so for that, it's mom's supposed to do everything you want, but then make sure you keep everything together and then write other things too. Have a job, but then, make sure you take care of the kids at the same time, all the time, at all the hours, right? We see all the memes, we see all the memes. And so the inner critic in that spot always has uh, opinions and thoughts about one's performance because the intention is it wants that person to do everything probably perfectly or in its opinion of brilliantly or well, and that oftentimes is like a really rigid non-human expectation. Right,
mhm.
so in that spot I remind my inner critic like I'm a human, I'm not a robot. So that's usually when that comes up for me. It's that's where I feel the tinges and the edges of society's conditioning.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's interesting because as a single dad who has primary custody, in a
Right.
lot of ways, I have to play
Mhm.
both those
You are.
roles. But then I also get more praise than the average single mom, where
Oh,
it's like, "Oh
sure.
my
Yeah.
gosh, you're so gr
Yeah.
you come to all the volleyball games," and maybe people don't say that as much anymore, but it's like, it's a really weird dynamic to, like,
I understand.
have, like,
Mhm.
all of that, and then to be like, "Man, am I doing enough so I don't mess up my kids, and am I doing enough to, like,
Mhm.
make sure that I'm thinking for their future, and this and this," and then it's like, when when I really look at it, it's like, no, like, they have so many people that love them. They have so many people around them, and
Yeah.
it's like to combat that critic. A year from today, what would your dream private practice look like? Would you spend less time chasing claims or only working with clients who value your skill set? What if you had a network to reach out to for questions or free continuing ed? What if you had more time for yourself? Alma empowers you to confidently accept insurance backed by an all in one EHR that simplifies scheduling, documentation, and day to day practice operations. With a network of engaged providers and free CE resources, Alma makes it easy for you to build the practice of your dreams on your terms. Alma believes that when therapists get the support they need, mental health care gets better for everyone. Learn more about Alma at helloalma.com/Joe. Your dream practice is closer than you think. Get started now at helloalma.com/Joe. That's hello, ALMA.com/Joe. I want to switch a little bit into just the process of doing a podcast. So there's
Yeah.
tons of listeners here who have amazing clinical skills. They say things in sessions that they're just like, wow, like that could be a book or that could be a podcast, and they just don't know where to start. They don't know if they're good enough. They probably have their own inner critics saying, like, what's
Mhm.
my voice matter? So I want to start with, there's lots of people that talk about inner critics. There's lots of people that talk about like parts work and stuff. Like, what did it take for you to feel confident enough to say, I'm going to step into the podcasting world and start the Inner Critic podcast?
Oh, thanks, Joe. Yeah, it's such a safe spot to be with everybody here and with you and to peel this open. Yeah, it took 13 years of, first of all, initially having that idea, listening to your podcast, listening to everyone out there in, in our field that's doing well and doing great podcasts. And then 13 years later ish, if the math is mathing, as the kids say, I'm realizing 13 years passed. And I'm like, wait, what was I waiting for? Who was keeping
Mm,
me from an idea that's, gives me energy, right? Gives me that, right, just like the excitement, the joy. And then I got to a burnout spot right there. So that's the burnout spot that was coming around the 13-year mark of like, okay, you know, uh, I've been conditioned. All of my inner critic bouncers, I always say I have like 5 bouncers on each side. All the
mm,
bouncers here have like worked this machine here to the core and to the cell of exhaustion. And I'm early 30s at this time. And I'm like, where's the joy? Of course, children bring joy. I am a mom, right? And, right, my passion in this field was changing, was dwindling. I was bogged down by, becoming a group practice owner, which is a gift and an honor as well. And then the responsibility was overwhelming across the board. And I'm like, where's the joy? Where is
mm.
it? And I'm like, I think I'm a good egg. I think we all deserve some joy. We're all just trying to do some good work here for the collective, right? And I was like, okay, let's just do it. And I'm like, Joe has some great offerings. I think Joe is the first one I'm going to reach out to. That's where I
Well,
began
it's like
13 years ago.
yeah, and I
Yeah.
mean, to have had that conversation and to have supported you, and this has been so fun, and we're obviously continuing to support the
Mhm.
Inner Critic podcast. What about the like imposter syndrome? Like,
Yeah.
who am I to talk about the inner critic? Like, I didn't do all this deep research at Harvard, or maybe you did, and I don't
Oh,
know. But it's
same.
but it's like, a lot of people will say, well, like, yeah, I didn't start IFS. I can't talk about parts work. Well, someone else that's better than me or smarter than me or more of a founder than me should do that. How did that play out for you?
I love that. So all these years later and all of my personal work, the theme I just was going up against was these different parts, and it's inner critic. And I'm like, what I know from my story is that, and what I know overall is that every person's story matters. And
Mm,
I'm like, well, if I believe every person's story matters, apparently that means mine does too. My story matters too. And I'm like, if I have an offering, I have an offering from my perspective of how I've navigated through the excruciating voices of my inner critics that always had something to say, still chime in, and are my advisors now. But it's just a version of this healing journey where it happens to be bogged down by inner critics. And so I'm like, hey, it's an offering to the collective. It's an offering. And everyone gets to offer something special because everyone is special. And
mm,
that's my true belief. And I'm like, apparently, I guess that means I have something to say too. So I was like, I'm going to trust that. I'm going to trust that. So if I'm doing all the parts work here, and which I, clearly, if as we're talking here, I believe deeply in it. I've seen it. I've done the work with other clients, my own clients, and my team here in different ways in leadership. I've seen other people transform. I feel like I was in a transformational spot. And I'm like, yeah, I guess, you know what? Everyone's voice matters. So we're
mm.
going to just take a leap here and surround myself, which is a thing I have to remind my critics all the time, is that Emily gets to choose who's in her corner now. So that's like
Yeah.
that 18-year-old needs to be reminded.
Mhm.
Hmm.
Tell me a little bit about coming up with ideas and content. I think what stands in the way of a lot of potential podcasters is, man, how am I going to come up with something to talk about for 30 minutes every single week? Like, how are you coming up with content? What have been things that have helped with that? How are you just thinking through future episodes? Yeah,
Yeah.
all of that.
So that my inner critics block me still. They're like, hold on here. We need to, they say, you need to sit in this and do more brainstorming. So they have like evaluative comments still of like the enoughness or idea thing. But it's like I get to choose who can support me. And so like Joe, you support me, thank goodness. And yeah, so just like kind of hearing out how other people battle their inner critics, how they encounter them day to day. And then mine's always there. Like mine's just like showing up and doing its thing. And I'm like, I get to know it. I have a moment with it. And I'm like, well, that's something to share. That's something to share. That's a real human experience that is an offering that, I can share. And so it's never ending because from
Mm,
moment to moment, the inner critic is eyeballing over there in the corner. And maybe there's times where she gives me a break. She has more trust in me as a person, and then I have more spaciousness. Then that's still something to talk about, right? It's the lived experience is occurring live action in this moment, and there's always something to just kind of touch on. So,
mm.
and my neurodivergent brain is like all the files are open, bing, 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 ideas, right? So, and it's just so helpful to have you, Joe, and someone just like you to like help guide that process and generate it together.
Yeah, it's so fun for me to like hear like you talk about, okay, I'm thinking about this with the inner critic, and here's all the files, and then to start to kind of just organize it and say, okay, this story and that
Yeah.
research links. Let's talk about this niche kind of topic. And that's what I love about podcasting too, is that, where else right now can you spend 30 minutes talking about anything? I mean, other than
Yeah.
on Netflix watching a series that's usually just like binge worthy, which oftentimes doesn't have any content that actually helps you become a better person. It's just like your brain disappears while you watch Black Rabbit.
Mhm.
So it's like, um, but I think that, other than documentaries, there's not really this level of content anywhere else. YouTube, most videos are
Right.
under 3 minutes. TikTok, it's like
Mhm.
15 seconds. And so to me, I think of all the areas, it's like one of the best positioning as a professional to say, I want to go beyond my practice. I want to maybe get a book someday, maybe get more speaking gigs.
Yeah.
Because you can then interview all these really cool people too that are like kind of way out of your league in some ways when you have a podcast. So
Yeah.
for me, it's just like, it's amazing.
Joe, and like we we're exchanging time, and I get to learn about, and you've been so generous to share about your inner critic journey, and like you right now, and then in a different way in a different episodes we've done before too, and then through that journey is, I get to, if people are able to share, right, get to see how like that person, you know successful, thousands of whatever, right, follow whoever else, the great work they're doing, they also went through a journey too with it.
Yeah, and still do. Like, I
Mhm.
mean, I think that's the thing that people think that you're gonna be at a point in life where you feel like you've arrived and you can do it with boldness.
Mhm.
But to me, it's like it's going through and like
Yeah.
slaying the metaphorical dragon that makes you the knight on the other side. Or there's probably other things that are less violent that I could have used
No,
that
it's
don't
great.
reinforce the patriarchy. But it's like going through the journey itself of going from not being a podcaster to now being over a decade into it. That journey is what made me into, where I am now, and I still have so far to go. And I think
Mhm.
it's the same sort of thing where there's never going to be a good time. It's just like
No.
if you want to
Yeah.
do it, like do it. Like I wrote it down. Like, what am I waiting for? What are those things that could light you up, and why are you burned out? And
Mhm.
sure, there's the practical. The metaphor I often use is, there's kind of the spinning plates of your practice that you got to keep going.
Yeah.
The things that bring in the money, even with practice of the practice, there's the things that are reliable income sources.
Mhm.
And we have to keep doing those really, really well, or we're
Yeah.
going to lose sponsors on the podcast. We're going to lose trust of our audience. But then we can throw spaghetti at the wall and say, well, let's see if a 7-figure practice retreat works. Like we just got back from the Dominican Republic and it
Yeah.
worked really well. And it's like there's other things we tried that they don't work well. And so
Mhm.
I think having that variety for me is so exciting within the business.
That's so exciting. And as you're sharing that, I'm just reflecting in my head, for me, for sure. I can speak from my own perspective, but like knowing where generating ideas and plans that you shared that you all are doing, when I'm generating that on my end, it's like I hear where the inner critic has peeked in and poked in and just
Hmm.
staring, just like staring at me, having things to say. And it's, yeah, so it's just, I let time was just passing, and then there I was, and I'm like, okay, that part can't take the steering wheel here, right? And
Yeah.
it's just, it has good intentions. You get to know it, and then it's like, wait, here we have some great work to present to the world, just like you are doing, Joe, on your end.
Mhm.
So it's
Now,
amazing.
if we went back like 5 years and we could bring that Emily on and you could tell her about podcasting, about getting started, and this is sort of speaking to the people that are like, I kind of want to start a podcast, but I don't know. Like, what do you think that they or past Emily should have known that you now know?
Mm, yeah, I what comes up is um, creating spaciousness. I think first for me 5 years ago, I needed more spaciousness on my end of just
Mm.
um, thinking and not urgent, not urgency. Next thing. So if you have an idea, having the ability to create spaciousness to sit in it with
Mm.
support.
I love that.
Yeah, that's the first thing that comes up for me. And I hope that's something that people can, carve out when survival is in a different spot for them. We know how that goes. But I think, right, it's just how the time passed, and it's just the survival needed to dissipate. The urgency needed to, which is a part of me for sure too, needed to find a way to breathe and
Mhm.
trust and like look and reflect and see what happened, what the heck happened here,
Yeah.
right? The dust settling and it's okay. Um, but yeah, creating spaciousness and a support system. Everyone deserves to have one. And this is a kind of support system that you've created, Joe, and it's
Yeah.
out there for people.
Well, Emily, the last question I always ask is if every private practitioner in the world were listening right now, what would you want them to know?
I think that thing again, I think I'm just going to repeat like the spaciousness and
Yeah.
pause and um, working through urgency culture. Those parts are just like holding so much, so many responsibilities. They're doing well, they're keeping things moving. And then for me on my end, I lost the ability to have intentionality when those parts took over for me and strategy. And so if you're able to land and look at everything and have time and space, right? The intentionality and the strategy that we always intend can come back, right? And we want
Mm.
that there. So I'm just going to keep repeating that over and over. And I think that's what I just love for people to absorb and hear a little bit.
Love that so much. Well, if people want to follow your podcast, if they want to follow your work, your practice, all of that, where should we send them?
The Inner Critic Podcast.com, theinnercritic.com is the podcast website. And then Emily Pagone handle on Instagram is perfect.
Love it. Go check out the podcast. And Emily, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thanks so much, Joe. Appreciate it.
Man, I feel like I could have talked to Emily forever. The fact that she's a new podcaster, man, I think she's born to podcast because she did not need much speaker training. She just talks so deeply and authentically. I have a whole page of notes just about, when it comes up, like, what do you see? I wrote down, I'm now 47 and don't need that part to help me now. I put kind of pushing things away versus just letting it come up, letting the ego state come and go and transcend. And then what am I waiting for? No matter where we're at in life, I think asking ourselves, like, what am I waiting for? Now, I'm a pretty practical person. I'm pretty risk averse. I literally was saving money like a madman when I was like 5 years old. I had a lemonade stand where I hired the whole neighborhood so I didn't have to work. So I'm a pretty practical person. And when I was 19, I went to Europe for 6 weeks with no plan. So going back to that adventure side and just saying, like, what am I waiting for? Like, what does that look like? And even in my everyday, I may not be able to go travel the world, but that adventure, that way of living that feels more in balance, of just sitting with things, is so important. As Emily said that, the last few days, I've been going through John and Julie Gottman's new book, Fight Right. And, in the mornings, I drop my daughter off at school, and usually I'm home by 9 a.m., and my first meetings are usually 9:30. And I'll usually do the dishes. I'll do some keep the house up. And I've decided I'm going to drink my tea in the morning and just read for 15, 20 minutes and then take a few minutes to prepare. And it feels like it's helping me just say, I want my emotions to be grounded. I want to be able to understand my own flooding. I want to understand my own reactivity. I'm not perfect, and I want to work on those things. And it feels like a much better start to my day than just checking more things off the list as a father. So I want to encourage you to take Emily's advice and to think through, where do you need to sit with things? And maybe as you've heard this, you said, I'm interested in just talking with Joe about a podcast. Would love to just chat with you about that. Practiceofthepractice.com/apply is where all of our consulting clients, that's where you go to have a 30-minute free conversation with me. It's not a hard sell. It's literally like, is this a fit for where you're at? Is it a fit for your budget? You can also read through over at Podcast Launch School. If you already have a podcast, we have some support services there. We have a done for you launch. We have a whole done for you package. So lots of services for you if you want to dip your toes into the world of podcasting. Also, we couldn't do the show without our sponsors. Alma is just such an amazing company to work with. They are backed by their all-in-one EHR that simplifies your scheduling, documentation, and day-to-day practice operations. They believe that when therapists get the support they need, mental health care gets better for everyone. You can learn more over at helloalma.com/Joe. Again, that's helloalma.com/Joe. Thank you so much for letting me into your ears and into your brain. Have a great day. I'll talk to you soon. Special thanks to the band Silence is Sexy for that intro music, and this podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regard to the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the host, the producers, the publishers, or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, or other professional information. If you want a professional, you should find one.